Hello everyone and welcome to Webinar Wednesdays, and thank you for joining us for the launch of the Year of Organization Design. We are happy to be kicking off with this webinar and with our international speaker Andrew Campbell, and a very significant discussion today on organization design, a blueprint for organization optimization. We invite you to look out for other events, webinars, the conference, and a certificate program around this theme throughout 2019. We also take this opportunity to welcome those of you who are joining us from throughout the Caribbean region, the United States, United Kingdom, and countries as far as Ghana. We are very pleased to have you join us today. I am your host, Taryn Hodges, and my co-host is my colleague, Estrella Hernandez, and she'll be chatting with you all via the chat box. So she would be dropping in there the link for you to give feedback at the end of the webinar, how you can contact us, etc. Webinar Wednesdays is brought to you by Lockjack GSP Consulting Services. Lockjack GSP Consulting offers a range of services through our webinars. Through our webinars, we seek to bring you insights on our best practices for developing your organization, as well as critical knowledge for one's own professional development. This year, for Webinar Wednesdays, we also have, at the end of each month, our Spotlight on Executive Education, where we bring you a taste of knowledge we offer in our open programs. In relation to our topic today, organization design, we help organizations assess their current organization model to determine its effectiveness for achieving their strategic goals and identifying gaps. We can also work with you to design a model that focuses on business generation and performance. So if this is a need you have, and of course you'll know that even better by the end of today's webinar, please do not hesitate to contact us. We have a few in-house announcements of upcoming events. Then we will go straight into the webinar presentation. We will have a Q&A segment, which is very important for addressing any specific questions or concerns you may have. We have a limited time, but we'll try to get to as many questions as possible. Please put your questions in the chat box or in the Q&A section, and Estrella will bring them to our speaker's attention. If we are unable to address your concerns during the session, then please do not hesitate to contact Lockjack GSP Consulting, and we'll be happy to arrange a free initial consultation with you. We will post our contact information at the end of the webinar, and Estrella will also be dropping that into our inbox. We have a number of upcoming webinars around the Year of Organization Design. We're going to be talking about business process. We're going to be talking about that staff element inside of organization design, employee optimization, recruitment selection, etc. We're also going to be talking about culture as the year goes on. So please stay with us. But you can, if you're interested in registering for business process management coming up on March 13th, then let us know. We also have a series of certificate programs. We have a number of special programs happening in 2019, which you may wish to take note of. We have the dates there, the different ones, or you can just write consult@lockjackgsb.edu.tt, and we will reach out to you and give you the necessary information about our programs. Next week is our Spotlight on Executive Education, and this will be on behind the scenes of event, entertainment, and production. Our speaker for that particular webinar is Mr. Derek Lewis, founder and creative director of Unlimited Events and lecturer in our professional certificate in events management. And this webinar will provide a behind the scenes look at some of our 2019 Carnival events, exploring what it takes to put on a quality event. And DLIC. As many of you know, this is our flagship conference that takes place every year. So we want you to save the date. It is happening. You will be hearing announcements soon about who is our speaker. So save the date, May 6, 2019. Look out for more information about this year's speaker, which will be revealed As always, our DLEC conference promises to engage our participants in thoughtful and creative discussion with takeaways that can be readily applied into your workplace. Now, we're getting there. We want to hear from you. I always make a plug for you all to give us your feedback. Tell us, how did you find the webinar today? Was it useful to you? How was our speaker? What are the future topics you would like us to speak on? Literally, it takes 2 minutes. So there is our webinar link, and Estrella will be dropping that in the chat box as well as we go along and later on in the survey. Now for what we've been waiting for, our international speaker. Andrew Campbell. Andrew is a Harvard MBA graduate. He is the director of the Ashridge Strategic Management Center at Hult International Business School since it was formed in 1987. He's also the program director of Advanced Organization Design and Designing Operating Models at Hult. And furthermore, he developed and led 3 of Ashridge's strategy programs: group level strategy, strategic decisions, and strategy and finance. Andrew is also a previous fellow of the Center of Business Strategy of London Business School. He spent 6 years with McKinsey and Company in Los Angeles and London, and he's the author of 10 books based on his research, including Strategy for the Corporate Level 2014 and Operating Model Canvas. We are very pleased to have with us today, Andrew. Andrew?
Hello, yes, I'm here. Are you handing over to me?
Yes, just a second. I'll be bringing up your slides.
While you're doing that, I should explain to the participants that the delay at the start of this is entirely my fault as a result of my computer freezing and various other foolishnesses at my end. So I will make up for it by being speedy with this delivery and give you time for some questions. What is organization design and why is it important? Is the theme I think that I'm going to focus on. And if you go to the first slide, I'm going to start with a definition. And if you could just put up the whole slide, please, that would be great, all the items. My point is a well-designed organization. My definition of that is an organization where you have capable people, and these are, in other words, capable for the roles that you've given them in the design. So capable for the roles you've given them, capable people focused on what's important, so the people are doing the work that you most want done, and critically working well together. And hence, good organization design focuses people on the important, and this is about, you know, what boxes you have in your organization structure as much as anything, but how you're allocating the resources to what ends. Creates roles for capable people, which is partly, you know, good role design, but it's also thinking about the people who are available and making sure the roles you design suit their capabilities. And again, critically, the design helps people in the organization work well together. So that's the ambition of good organization design. Next slide. So I wanted to start with a little question to all of those of you listening in, and that is, do you have a well-designed organization? Do you have capable people focused on what's important, working well together? And if you just take a moment to record yes in part or no, Taryn, do people need explanation of where to record their responses?
We have launched a polling, so persons, we're going to give you just about 30 seconds to respond, so you can start clicking there. Yes, in part, or no. Do you work in a well-designed organization? Just respond to question 1. That's the first question. Just question one on, do you work well in a well-designed organization?
Well, or yeah, do you work in a well-designed organization rather than do you work well in it? But yeah. Okay, so if I can cut in, please add anyone who's listening if you haven't already scored. But what I'm looking at is about half are saying no, and the other half are fairly reasonably split between yes and in part, although it's actually changing now, and the percentage of yes is down to about 20%.
So we just ended polling, and the majority of persons are saying, 44% is saying no, 38% is saying in part, and 19% is saying yes.
So I think we start off here, if I can continue to the next slide. Mm-hmm. Now I've got the poll in front of me. How do I get rid of that? Here we go. Okay, that's good. So why is organization design important? And to some degree, it's important because you are mostly all saying that you don't think your organizations meet my definition of a good organization or a well-designed organization. And the impact of that is likely to be, first, that you have people and resources not focused on the most important priorities of your organization. Second, that your organization doesn't have some of the capabilities it needs to do what it wants to do. Third, it's the people in the organization don't feel accountable or don't have a way of being accountable for important outcomes. And if you just put up the rest, click through the rest, please, so that they all go up on the screen, that you will have people who are not motivated or not fully motivated or committed to the work they're doing or the objective that they should be committed to, that they're importantly not working well together in terms of collaboration, that the culture is not the one that is going to bring the best out of the people, costs are too high, and importantly, the organization is slow to change in the ways that it needs to be able to change. So these are all the negatives that can come from not having a well-designed organization. And so I'm going to give you another little poll, which is, how many of these negatives do you have in your organization? So if we turn to the next poll, or the next page, actually the poll is fine here.
Might we could give persons who did not have an opportunity to respond to the second poll, the second question in that poll, which of these could be improved in your organization? Focus, capability, accountability, motivation, collaboration, just to start responding.
And then if you scroll on down, there's, all the numbers have disappeared.
On the second question?
I think, Taryn, you've asked people to put their scores in again because they had already put them in.
Yep, we're asking them to respond to that one now, to do it over. The second one, just answer the second question. Which of these could be improved in your organization?
Thank you, everybody. This is going very well. And I think we should stop it there, Taryn. I'm going to share the data, and the data says that about 75% of you feel there's insufficient accountability, and 63% of you feel that either there is insufficient collaboration or that the culture isn't what you'd like it to be. And then probably the next highest is insufficient agility to change when change is needed. So I think what I've been trying to achieve here is to make you aware that organization design is important, and clearly it's important in your organizations, and no doubt this is why you're signed up for this webinar. If we could have the next slide, please. A couple of thoughts to start with, and if you could put up the whole slide, please. First is the difference between formal and informal organization. So I'm going to be academic here for a second, which is that most textbooks will talk about formal organization and informal organization. And what one needs to realize is that all one can do with design work is one can design parts of or all of the formal organization, which are things like organization structure, but also processes and policies and so on. What we should never forget is that the real organization is the informal organization. This is how people actually work together in order to get the job done. And it may follow the formal organization, or much more frequently, it doesn't in many parts. People have workarounds and ways of getting things done which are not prescribed in the formal organization. And so when we're doing organization design, we are trying to impact the informal organization. And we do it by designing some formal elements, because that's all we can design, because we can't really design the informal, in the hopes that that design work will influence the informal, will influence how people actually behave. Next slide, please.
Next slide.
As we do this design work, it's very important that we realize that structure, the organization chart, the lines and boxes, and who people report to, is just one piece of the design work we have to do, because we also have to think about the people who are going to fill those boxes. We also have to think about the power that those people will have, or we would like them to have, in the organization. We need to think about the relationships that we want to have in the new organization, the working relationships. How will the people in the blue box, interact with the people in the red box, and so on. We are often designing the processes, because working well together is frequently about the relationship, but it's also about how well designed the processes are that link people together. We're often designing incentives, so that we are trying to help people be motivated and committed to the things that we want them to do. Culture helps provide them with more broad-ranged guidance about how they should behave. And of course, leaders and the way they behave are very influential in how people behave. So these are the broader agenda of things that we need to think about when we're doing organization design. And many of you will be familiar with models like the McKinsey 7S model or J. Galbraith's STAR model, which are tools to help you think broadly about organization design and not get over-focused on structure. Next slide, please. So then we get to the task of doing a piece of organization design work. And down the left-hand side of this slide is the journey that you go in a project that may take 6 days or 6 weeks or even 6 months, where you get a brief from a sponsor who says, I'd like you to have a go at redesigning this part of the organization, or helping us redesign this part of the organization. You try and get clarity about what good will look like, your design objectives, or is often called design principles. You come up frequently with ideas and options about how the future organization might be, both structure and processes and people and so on. And then you select from amongst those and refine and improve and work out the detail of the option that you've concluded, that you've chosen. And to support you in this journey, there are a number of tools, of which I'm going to just touch on a couple, by way of illustrating what's available. And are used to diagnose, which are mainly there to help you get clear about what improvements you want to make to the organization, or what outcomes you want the organization to be able to deliver, the design objectives. And there are some tools that help you with the design task, the developing options and refining a particular option. And if you're looking at the slide closely, you'll notice that some of these tools appear both under diagnosis and under design. And these are, powerful tools that you can use to understand the situation and to help you come up with solutions, like the organization model tool and the 9 tests. Next slide, please. First tool that I want to spend a moment on, though, is called a value chain map. And this is, I have found in the last 20 years, the most powerful and most exciting tool to use. And I'm displaying here a value chain map of Ashridge Executive Education, and of which I'm part. And Ashridge, rather like Arthur Lock Jack, has serves the executive education market. And we have open courses, and we have tailored courses for particular companies. We have qualifications courses. We offer our space for conferences. We even, because we have a beautiful building, offer the space for weddings. And we have the faculty who do research and write books. And what you do with the value chain map is you take each of these outputs of the organization, and you lay out the work that needs to be done. These are the chevrons going from left to right, against, open courses. There are 4 chevrons going from left and right, and tailored courses, there are, about 7 chevrons going from left to right. You take the topic, like open courses, and you lay out what are the work steps that need to be done in order to deliver a good open course to executives. And you do this for each of the lines of business in this case. And then you assemble the map, the map of value chains in columns based on like capability. So in this case, there is some design work in open courses, but there's also some design work that goes on in tailored courses. And there's also some design work that goes on in research. And so all of these fit under the chevron design, and the same further along under the chevron of admin. All of these activities have some admin support required for them. So this map is then giving you a picture of the main work that your organization needs to do in order to be successful in the areas it wants to be successful. And what is exciting about this tool is you can then use it for a couple of things. First, if you put on the next slide, you can lay onto this tool information about which of these chevrons is really important to success. Which of these steps have to be done really well for you to succeed against competition or against your objectives? And where do you currently have problems? Where are you underperforming? So you get on one page a picture of your organization, where it needs to do really well and where it's currently struggling, which helps you focus your attention, because one of the difficulties with organization design is how do you get kind of focus. And the next thing you can do is to take each of these chevrons, and typically you would take ones which are bold, i.e. really important, and have red stars, and so they're really important and we're currently struggling. And you ask yourself, should this, so I'm looking here at the line that says qualifications, and under qualifications, the first one is in the column of market or marketing. Should the people who do qualifications marketing report to the head of qualifications or the head of marketing? And this is immediately an organization structure issue. And and you can do this for every chevron on the map. Think about which is the most important way for it to report. So this tool, this value chain map tool, it helps you see your business on a page, see your organization on a page, and help you start thinking about important structural choices, organization choices that need to be made in your design. We are reasonably short of time, so I'm going to skip very quickly to the next tool that I wanted to expose, which is called the 9 Tests of Good Organization Design. And this you can find on Google articles, on Harvard Business Review articles, and so on, because it's a reasonably long established tool. And what it has 9 questions, 9 tests that you ask yourself, which you can ask yourself about a current organization to say, do I need to change it? And or a proposed new organization, saying to yourself, is it well enough designed? Are there any further tweaks and improvements that need to be made? And I'm just going to illustrate one of these types of tests here. And in order to save time, I'm not going to go through all of them, but some of them require a little bit of explanation, like you'll see at the top right. There's something called the Specialist Cultures Test. And this probably requires a little bit of explanation, whereas the one below it, the Difficult Links Test, is really, about collaboration, where you're finding collaboration difficult. But let me just take the strategy test. So if you go to the next slide, and this test is as simple as asking the question, is there a box? And here we're talking about the lines and boxes chart, the organization chart. Is there a box in the organization chart or some other powerful mechanism, which might be a project team or a committee or a priority list or something? But is there a box or some other powerful mechanism for every priority in the strategy? And you ask this question both for the strategy at the level that you're thinking of doing redesign. So, if you're designing the HR function, then you'd be saying the design level test would be, what's the strategy of the HR function? And the higher level would then be the strategy of the organization, which the HR function is part of. So the level here is about, hierarchical levels in the structure of the organization that you're designing. And the power of this question is unnerving, and has made me realize that often you can better understand an organization's strategy by looking at its organization chart, because the organization chart tells you how resources and effort are currently being allocated, whereas the strategy document often describes how the organization would like resources and effort to be allocated in the future, but frequently does not bear much relationship to how they are currently allocated in the present. And so the way an organization is actually allocating its resources is more revealing about its strategy than the words in the strategic plan. Now, I don't know if we've got any time left for questions, but if we have, I'd be very happy to answer them.
Yes, we do have some time for questions, and I am just going to kick off in terms of, so Andrew, if you can answer for us, when is it that you find a company needs to be looking at their organizational model? When typically is that necessary?
Well, it's not a bad thing to look at if performance is poor, because that could be caused by poor organization design. It's a good thing to look at if employees are not engaged. It is frequently a necessary thing to do when leadership changes, because organizations are frequently have been adjusted to suit the strengths and weaknesses of the leaders who are running them. And when a new group of leaders take over or a new individual takes over, some adjustments are often needed to rebalance the relationships and make it work. And it's very normal and absolutely necessary to look at organization when strategy changes. Because if you change strategy, then you need almost certainly to reallocate your resources in some way, and that will require some change in organization.
So one of our participants is asking, is organizational design an aspect of organizational development?
There are many debates on LinkedIn, which I have tried to be part of at certain points, about the definition of organization design and organization development. And there are those who say that design is a part of development, and those who say that development is a part of design. I think my own view is that design is something which addresses more of the hard aspects of organization, like structure and like accountabilities and like decision-making powers and so on. Whereas development typically is more about the softer sides of organization, which is people capabilities, culture, team interactions, and things like that. Now, that's just my view, and I do know that out there's every possible view you could imagine.
And another question coming in is, can organization design be used to start a retrenchment or downsizing process?
It probably isn't where I'd start if I was having a downsizing process. So my place to start, and I've done this quite a bit as a consultant when working for McKinsey, is to try and identify work that doesn't need to be done. Because if you can reduce the amount of work, then you can start cutting back on the number of people, unfortunately, but most importantly, the cost of what you're doing. And it is often possible to reduce the amount of work without changing the organization at all. You're just keeping the same organization chart. You may have the same processes and so on, but you're just cutting out some of the work activities. However, a very powerful way to downsize is to cut out some of the senior leaders and the people that they have around them and who are creating work for everyone else. So, and that usually can only be done with organization design change. So the two are closely associated, but we shouldn't think of organization design as the first step in downsizing.
So just to add, because you mentioned that one of the reasons or the triggers for looking at your organizational model is a crisis or restructure, how do the two fit together?
How do the two what's fit together? Sorry.
So basically, how does the crisis trigger the look at the organizational model or desire to restructure, or vice versa?
Well, any examination of organization can only be triggered by the leadership group of that organization. So there is no there's no sense or no wisdom in launching some organizational design process or review process if the leadership team of that organization or the leader of that organization doesn't want it to happen. Because the person who's going to make the decisions about which solution is chosen and which is the leader of that bit of organization. So if you haven't got that person as a sponsor, and maybe it's 2 or 3 people, you are wasting energy by working on the organization. Now, that's probably not necessarily so true in development work, although in development work also you need a sponsor for any development initiative that you take, but the sponsor can frequently be much lower down in the organization.
Someone is asking how often should you be looking at your organizational model, they're asking what is a healthy review period or trigger for doing same? Is it so? I guess when do you look at it? But I guess I would go back to your previous answer, or is there in terms of?
No, I think let me have a go at that, Janice. I think that's an interesting question. It's something that I have done work on with certain companies about an organization review process. So we have in most organizations, an annual cycle for reviewing strategy, reviewing current performance, setting new budgets. And I think it is completely appropriate to have an annual review of the organization. How well is it working? Did it deliver what we were hoping it to deliver? Do we think that's because of the organization, or is that because of circumstances outside of the organization? And what adjustments could we make to make it better? So I think an annual review is certainly a reasonable thing to do. Should it be done more frequently than that? Probably not, just because it's time consuming and a bit scary for people inside if they don't know, who they're going to be reporting to next week. And could it be delayed more than a year? And the answer to that is yes as well, which is true of quite a few strategy processes in large companies. Is it's a sort of as and when needed process. So we launch a strategy review process in some companies when there is a strategic issue that we don't know the answer to. And maybe the same could be in organization, that we launch an organization review when an organization issue has come up that we don't immediately have a solution for. So it depends a bit. There is a great value in the annual discipline, but of course the annual process can become a bureaucracy of time wasting, like many of these processes also.
We have lots of questions coming in, but we're just going to have time to take one more. And I am going to pull this one. Sorry, it just sort of up. How many companies utilize organization design, and what is the value to organizations in looking at their organizational model?
Don't know the answer to the first, other than the fact that you have to design an organization whether you like it or not. So anytime somebody says you report to me is an act of organization design, and anytime somebody says I'd like you to do this work, not that work, it's an act of organization design. So I think organization design is happens informally all the time. How many companies actually use the tools and techniques that I'm suggesting will help create well-designed organizations, and that is much fewer, and maybe as many as few as 1 in 100. How necessary is it, and what are the benefits? Well, I think that goes back to the polls that we did at the start here, which is you're likely to get much better organization performance and better outcomes and happier people in the organization if it's well designed.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you so much for joining us today and taking the time to share with us an organization design. And I know you would be able to go more in depth in some of these particular issues at the upcoming conference later this year, as well as persons who want to start applying organization design inside of their organization. It will get this skill set in the certificate program as well, happening later this year. Thank you so much, Andrew. We would love to get your feedback on the webinar today. So just feel free to drop us feedback in terms of by completing the webinar survey. Estrella will be dropping that link in the chat box so that you can click on it and give us your feedback. Now, as well, we just remember we have a number of things coming up. The business process management webinar is happening on the 13th, and we're going to keep talking about organization design and different elements of organization design throughout this year. We also have a number of specialist skills certification programs, certificate programs coming up. Starting in March on the 26th and 27th, Assessor Skills. We have bundles available, bundle packages, discounts if you're doing more than one of these workshops. So please consult at lockjackgsp.edu.tt if you're interested in any of these programs, if you're interested in the upcoming conference, if you're interested in the organization design conference and certificate program. Join us next week for our webinar Wednesday on behind the scenes of event entertainment and production. That is our spotlight and executive education taking place next week. And there is our contact information. We thank all of you for joining us today for our webinar Wednesday and the launch of the Year of Organization Design. And we thank you for joining us. Feel free to contact us at consult@lockjackgsb.edu.tt or call us at 645-6700 extension 223. Thanks again for joining us today. If you want. Just change the slides. Good. Stressful. Is over chaotic. Some of those same questions if you're on the chat in the market and stuff. And the poll. Yeah, the poll questions and there's some answers for some of the questions to use as marketing. That's a good question.